Hello and welcome to this Dark Souls guide and playthrough. With the imminent release of Dark Souls 2, you might wonder what the point of making a Dark Souls guide is at this late point in the game. It's simple really. Firstly, I love this game. It has become my favourite game of all time, and I've been playing games since the mid-80s when the first ZX Spectrums were released. Secondly, I've been inspired by two chaps who post Dark Souls content to YouTube. One is a fellow called, the first is a fellow called Road64, who has made a brilliant guide for beginners to Dark Souls. It is straightforward and to the point. There's no waffling, it's just information and help. The second is Marcus, who goes by the moniker of Epic Name Bro, and his lore videos have enriched the Dark Souls experience for me and made the game a lot more interesting and deep. And thirdly, is there a third point? I guess, you know, there's a narcissistic reason for doing so. Everyone likes to, I don't know, show off and share their contributions to Anyway, let me talk about the game now. I'm having a look just now at the Stray Demon. That's his name or her name. You can hear him or her stomping around inside the cell. They appear to be imprisoned in here just as we were. These hollows that we encounter in this corridor are target practice. That's the function that they serve. They allow new players to sample the combat mechanics, albeit with a very poor weapon, a broken sword. Nevertheless, it gives you a chance to try stabbing, well, not stabbing, I guess you can't stab somebody with a blunt sword or a broken sword. As we come up these ladders, we're going to approach the game's bonfire, or the bonfires. They are the game's checkpointing system, so if you die, you respawn at the last bonfire you sat at. Sitting is the important part. They're also the game's interface that the user uses to interact with various in-game mechanics, such as increasing your character's stats, improving his attributes such as strength, dexterity, health, these kind of things. We'll talk more in depth about the bonfire system in another video. I've actually just coming back to Dark Souls for the first time in a while, so I'm kind of rusty, and I'm trying to get used to all the different mechanics and buttons myself. I'm playing on PC and using the Xbox 360 wired controller. A quick point about, as we push these doors open, if you look up to the roof, you'll see another one of the demons, just identical almost to the demon that we've seen below. We can actually hear the stray demon stomping around below as we go through the doors. Going through that gate is a scripted event. The developers intended for new players to come through here. You're not expected. They're not that sadistic that they expect new players to take on a massive enemy, a massive boss like that with a broken weapon. Again, we come up to a second bonfire. They're not as plentiful in the game as they appear to be in the tutorial. In this corridor that we're about to walk into, we encounter the game's first hostile enemy. The other chap that dropped down there, the Asylum demon, is a boss. This is the first generic enemy that we encounter. We also pick up our character classes, shield and primary weapon in this corridor. Our character class is a bandit class. We're equipped with the spider shield, which provides resistance, a complete resistance to toxic and poison damage, which becomes useful at certain areas of the game. I chose the bandit class because it's a class I've never tried before, and I believe he has the highest damage output of all the melee characters from the start of the game. That's going to suit our playstyle because we're going to be focusing on melee combat. I don't think I'll be going into sorceries or magic in this playthrough. There's nothing wrong with them, they can be very helpful and useful in the game, but it's just not something that I'm going to do with this guide. Again, this is me just trying to get used to the game. You'll see that I fail miserably at defending myself here. Take an arrow and another. Nearly take a third if I'm not careful. And what I do here is I perform a attacking move called the backstab. It's a critical attack, meaning that you inflict more damage on an enemy. I'll explain how backstabs are performed later on. I just want to talk about the fog gates for a second. Fog gates, as you come through them, be prepared for combat. Sometimes when you come through them you'll encounter a boss, and other times you're just entering a new area, but always be prepared for combat and have a look around and be diligent. When I first started this game, you'll see a cannonball or a big iron ball rolling down there. I actually thought you could maybe block that and attempted to do so without much success. You're better just to jump off the stairs as it comes down. We encounter the first human NPC of the game. His name's Oscar, and if you look up to the roof, it looks like he's been bashed through here by the Asylum demon, who also came from the roof, as we'd seen a moment ago. Oscar has some important information for us, so I'll let him speak.
Then lose my sanity. I wish to ask something of you. You and I are both undead. Hear me out, will you? Regrettably, I have failed in my mission, but perhaps you can keep the torch lit. There is an old saying in my family. Thou who art undead art chosen, and thine exodus from the undead asylum maketh pilgrimage to the land of ancient lords. When thou ringeth the bell of awakening, the fate of the undead thou shalt know. Well, now you know, and I can die with hope in my heart. Oh, one more thing. Here, take this. An Estus flask, an undead favorite. Oh, and this. Now I must bid farewell. I would hate to harm you after death. So go now.
I'm going to interrupt Oscar. He gives you the Estus flask. The Estus flask is this game's health system. It allows you to, if you imbibe the contents of the Estus flask, you restore a proportion of your total health. Sitting at the bonfire, if you use 5 Estus flasks, that doesn't mean you won't get any more throughout your playthrough. It just means that you have to sit at a bonfire to repopulate your total amount of Estus flasks. I'll talk about them again in more detail as we go on through the game. As you can see, if you notice there, when that hollow sword hit off of our spider shield, you can see he was momentarily stunned. That's a good opportunity for you to attack him. This game is about observation and timing. You want to observe your enemies' attack and defensive patterns and exploit them basically. Don't rush in and attacking enemies in this game. And when you do start attacking enemies, sometimes it's better to back off and then go back in for the kill. That was a jumping attack. Perform that by pressing the left stick up and then the right trigger. I'm looking at that ledge over there just to point out to intelligence or faith builds that you will pick up either your catalyst or your talisman. Talisman for faith builds and catalyst for intelligence. I could have rolled out of that attack and performed rolled out of that manoeuvre and performed an instant attack in that hollow. I didn't. I'm trying to remember at this point how to parry and riposte. That's another critical attack. I think it might even inflict more damage on enemies than the backstab. I'm not entirely sure if that's correct, so if I'm wrong about that, please correct me. There is a parry and riposte. It's a beautiful animation, and it is particularly deadly. Oscar talked about the Bells of Awakening, and we'll encounter another human NPC quite soon who will talk about that. It's the next video actually. We're going to approach the Asylum demon here, and we do a thing called a plunging attack on him. As you can see, it takes off over half of his total health. I don't lock onto him because I want to get behind him. was a bit careless there. I don't lock on because I want to get behind him to smash into his ass with my axe. I want to slash at his hindquarters and take him down. I don't want to be in front of him because it makes me more vulnerable to his attacks. I got a wee bit too far away from him there, should have been a bit closer. I'm not as cautious of his floaty ass attack. You'll see I make a mistake that's common to beginners and people that haven't played the game for a while. I think that I can take him out by continuing my attack, where I should have maybe retreated after landing a few blows on him and then come back to finish him off. It looks like he's got no health, but he's got a dribble left, and this last swing will take him out. So that's the Asylum deemed out. We received the big pilgrim key, which will allow us to successfully escape the Asylum. There's no point in tagging that bonfire again, really, and we may as well just continue forward. We can still hear the stray demons stomping around down below us. It's interesting that the Northern Asylum is so derelict, and yet it's still in use. People are still imprisoning hollows and undead and demons in this asylum. If you go down to the left here, you'll pick up what's called a soul item. The soul items confer a number of souls to your character, and the number of souls that you receive depends on the size of the soul item that you pick up. You can find out what size they are by reading their descriptions or looking at their names and then comparing it to what's on the wiki. Anyway, for that soul item we receive 200 souls. Souls are the game's currency, allowing you to upgrade your character and his weapons and armour and whatnot.
Warm. Give me soft.
This is an NPC called Snuggly the Crow. You can trade items with it, and more often than not you'll receive an item that's more valuable to you than what you give it in the first place. So for example, you might give it some useless meadow and he might give you a massive weapon in return. I don't know if that is the case, but specifically in terms of the meadow and the weapon, but in general you receive better items than you give. I apologise for skipping through that voiceover. I accidentally hit the button. I think she just repeats the legend that Oscar discussed with us. We are brought to Lordran, which is the location that the game's main story is told from. And this is us in a location called Firelink Shrine. This is the beginning area of the game. As you can see, we're instantly greeted by a bonfire and an NPC. Do not attack that NPC. He is a good fighter and it will make the game extremely tiring and difficult if you attack him and don't succeed in killing him. Rest at the bonfire, use your souls to level up. I'll go into more detail about the leveling system in the next video. One thing I will say is you never increase resistance, because resistance the resistance can be improved through other ways. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful and I'll be back for the next one.